Mom, give me your card right now, or I swear you'll regret it. The scalding coffee hit my face like a slap of fire. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for just 1 second, feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. It was a Tuesday morning in my small apartment in the Pilsen neighborhood of Chicago. The blinds let in those golden September rays that used to brighten my day. My name is Carol. I'm 67 years old. And for my entire life, I thought being a mother was the greatest blessing God had given me. How wrong I was. I got up at 6 in the morning, as always. My routine was sacred. Brew coffee in the stovetop espresso maker I inherited from my mother. Make toast in the same toaster I've had for 20 years. And set the table for 2. Always for 2, even though my daughter Lucy rarely had breakfast with me. But I had hope. Every morning, I had hope. Lucy came downstairs dragging her slippers, her hair a mess, and that look of annoyance that had become a permanent fixture on her 35-year-old face. She was wearing my blue silk robe, the one my late husband Arthur gave me for our 30th anniversary. Seeing it so wrinkled on her body made my heart ache. "Good morning, honey," I said with the sweetest voice I could find that morning. "I made you coffee just how you like it, nice and dark, and there's strawberry jam I bought at the farmer's market yesterday." She didn't even look at me. She sat down heavily in the chair, picked up her phone, and started scrolling while slurping her coffee loudly. The silence thickened like fog between us. "Did you sleep well, sweetie?" I tried again. "What do you want, Mom?" she answered, not looking up from the screen. "If you don't have anything important to say, just be quiet. I have a headache." Every word was a splinter driving into my chest, but I kept smiling. It's what I always did. Smile and swallow the pain. That's what the women in my family had taught me. Endure, forgive, forget. Because in the end, love conquers all. After a few minutes of silence, Lucy dropped her phone on the table with a loud thud that made me jump. "Mom, give me your credit card," she said in that flat voice she used when she wanted something. "I need to buy a few things." My heart started to race. The credit card was all I had left to pay for my medication. My Social Security check was late, and the money I had in savings was dwindling after so many loans I'd given Lucy. Loans I knew she'd never repay. "Lucy, honey, I can't give it to you today," I said, my voice trembling as if I were apologizing for existing. "I have to buy my blood pressure pills, and besides—" "Besides what?" she interrupted, her eyes flashing with anger. "Don't tell me you're going to start with your washed-up, broke old lady act again?" The insult hit me like an invisible slap. "Washed up, broke old lady?" Those words came from the mouth of my daughter, the child I carried for 9 months, whom I nursed until my nipples cracked, whom I cared for days on end when she had a fever. "It's not an act, Lucy. I really need the money for—" "Mom, give me the damn card right now or I swear you're going to regret it," she screamed, standing up so abruptly that her chair fell backward. In that moment, something in her expression changed. I saw a look I didn't recognize, a look of pure hatred that froze my blood. She walked toward me slowly, like a predator cornering its prey. "You know what, Mom?" she said with a smile that terrified me. "I'm sick of your excuses. I'm sick of your martyr face. I'm sick of you playing the victim when everything you have belongs to me. Lucy, please!" But before I could finish the sentence, she grabbed the steaming mug of coffee in front of her and, without a second's hesitation, threw the entire contents directly in my face. The boiling liquid burned my skin like acid. I screamed in agony, clutching my face, feeling as if 1,000 needles were piercing me. Coffee dripped down my neck, soaking my nightgown. And the pain was so intense that for a moment, I thought I was going to pass out. "You pathetic old woman!" I heard her scream as I writhed in pain. "You're good for nothing! You should be thanking me that I haven't thrown you out on the street where you belong." Through the physical pain, the pain in my soul was even worse. This was my daughter, my little girl, the child who had been my entire world for decades, the child for whom I had sacrificed my dreams, my youth, my savings, my own happiness. And there she was, looking at me with absolute contempt while I burned from her cruelty. I managed to get to the sink and splash cold water on my face, but the damage was done. When I turned back to her, Lucy was standing there with her arms crossed, as if she had just done something completely normal. "The next time you refuse to give me what I ask for," she said with a calmness that scared me more than her screams, "it's going to be much worse." And she left. She left me there, my face on fire, my soul shattered, with the terrible certainty that my own daughter had become my worst enemy. That morning, as I treated my burns in front of the bathroom mirror, I looked at my reflection and no longer recognized the woman staring back. My face was red and swollen, my eyes filled with tears that wouldn't stop falling, and my expression was one of complete helplessness. For the first time in my life, I thought something I never imagined I would. What if I called the police? With trembling hands, I dialed 911. Never in my 67 years had I called the police. My voice came out broken as I explained that my daughter had assaulted me, that I needed help. "We'll be right there, ma'am," they said. For a moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. Someone was going to listen to me. Someone was going to see the truth. While I waited, I sat on the living room sofa, the same sofa where I had cradled Lucy as a baby. The walls were covered with photographs. Her first communion, her graduation, her birthdays. In all of them, I was smiling, holding her, hugging her. She was always serious, even as a child, as if she already knew that one day she would hate me. Lucy had gone up to her room after the incident. I heard her moving around up there, probably getting ready to go out as if nothing had happened, just as she always did after her fits of rage, as if burning your own mother was a normal part of any given Tuesday morning. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. When I opened the door, I saw two officers, an older man, about 50, with a graying mustache and a tired expression, and a young woman who wouldn't meet my eyes. They wore those dark blue uniforms that had always given me a sense of security. I now realized how wrong I had been. "Are you Mrs. Carol Peterson?" the older officer asked. "Yes, that's me. Thank you for coming so quickly," I said, instinctively touching the cheek that was still burning. "My daughter assaulted me this morning. She threw boiling coffee in my face. Look, I still have the marks." The officer looked at me with an expression I'd seen before, from doctors, from neighbors, from cashiers at the grocery store. It was a look that said, "The poor old grandma isn't all there anymore." But before I could explain further, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was Lucy, but not the furious Lucy from an hour ago. This was a completely different Lucy. She had changed her clothes, wearing an elegant black dress, and had done her hair and makeup. But the most striking thing was her expression. Her eyes were red and swollen as if she had been crying for hours. "Officers, thank God you're here," she said in a broken voice I had never heard from her. I didn't know what else to do with my mother. What else to do with me? I stood there, frozen. What was she talking about? "Excuse me," she said to the police, dabbing at a tear that had appeared as if by magic. "My mother she's sick. Lately, she's been making up terrible things, saying I attack her, that I steal her money. Yesterday, she left the gas stove on all night. She almost killed us both." "That's a lie," I shouted, desperate. "She's the one who threw the coffee. Look at my face, please. The burns are right there." The officers looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. The older one walked over to Lucy and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Take it easy, miss. We know how hard it is to care for a family member with dementia." Dementia? What dementia were they talking about? "I don't have dementia," I said, my voice growing shriller with desperation. "I'm perfectly fine. My daughter assaulted me. Please believe me." The young female officer finally spoke, addressing Lucy as if I weren't even there. "Have you considered placing her in a specialized facility? At this age, when they start having violent episodes and hallucinations, it's best they get professional care." "Yes, I've been looking at options," Lucy replied, sobbing theatrically. "But it's so hard, you know. She's my mother. I love her so much, but I just can't do this anymore. This morning she attacked me because I wouldn't give her my credit card. She claims it's hers, but the poor thing doesn't understand that I'm the one who works and pays all the bills in this house." Every word out of her mouth was like a knife twisting inside me. How could she lie so shamelessly? And how could the police believe every word? "She's lying," I screamed. I pay my share of everything with my Social Security. My late husband and I bought this house. She's the one who steals my money. The older officer turned to me with a reproachful look. Ma'am, you need to calm down. You're upsetting your daughter. You see how hysterical she gets? This isn't normal. Please listen to me. I pleaded, tears now streaming down my cheeks. I'm her mother. I raised her. I loved her. I gave everything for her. Why would I make something like this up? Because you're sick, Grandma, the young officer said with a condescension that shattered my soul. Your daughter told us you've been getting worse every day, that you forget things, get confused, that sometimes you don't even recognize her. That word, Grandma. I wasn't even a grandmother. Lucy never had children, but that officer called me Grandma like you'd call any crazy old woman on the street. As if my name didn't matter. As if my identity didn't matter. As if I didn't matter. Officers, Lucy continued in that sweet, concerned voice she had never used with me. Do you know of any place where she could get help? A place where they'll take good care of her? Where I can visit, but where she'll be safe and won't hurt herself? Or others? The two officers exchanged a knowing glance. It was clear they had made up their minds the moment they walked through the door. Look, Miss Peterson, the older one said. We have contacts at several specialized centers in the Chicago area. Serenity Meadows is very good. They have staff trained to handle these cases. Would you like us to make some calls? That would be wonderful, Lucy replied, clutching her chest as if she might faint from emotion. You have no idea what a relief it is to have someone understand. I've been dealing with this alone for months. You can't do this, I screamed, feeling the world crumble around me. I'm not crazy. I have all my papers in order. Call my doctor, Dr. Evans at the health clinic. He'll tell you I'm perfectly fine. But no one was listening. The three of them were talking among themselves as if I were a piece of furniture, as if I were a problem to be solved, not a person with rights, with a voice, with dignity. The procedure is simple, the officer explained to Lucy. With your testimony and ours about your mother's agitated state, we can have her evaluated today. If the doctors confirm she's a danger to herself or others, they can hold her for observation. And how long does that observation last? Lucy asked, and I could have sworn there was a strange gleam in her eye. It depends on the case. It could be a few days, or indefinite, if the situation requires it. In that moment, I understood everything. I understood that this had been the plan all along. I understood that the coffee hadn't been a fit of rage, but the first step in a much more elaborate scheme. I understood that my own daughter had orchestrated my destruction with the coldness of an executioner. Please, I begged one last time, my strength and hope gone. I'm Carol Peterson. I'm 67 years old. I worked for 40 years as a secretary at an accounting firm. I've lived in this house for 35 years. I'm not crazy. I just need someone to believe me. But the words vanished into thin air. No one looked at me. No one heard me. To them, I wasn't Carol anymore. I was just a hysterical old woman who needed to be silenced and locked away. The older officer's phone rang. He spoke for a few minutes and then hung up. Perfect, he said to Lucy. There's a spot available at Serenity Meadows. We can take her over for an evaluation right now. Right now? Lucy asked, feigning surprise. It's for the best, ma'am. Before she has another violent episode. And just like that, in less than 2 hours, my own daughter convinced the police that I was insane. Just like that, the uniforms that were supposed to protect me became my captors. Just like that, I discovered that sometimes justice has nothing to do with the truth, but with who tells the better lie. They didn't even give me time to change. I was still in my coffee-soaked nightgown when they put me in the squad car. My pink fuzzy slippers, a birthday gift from Lucy last year, looked ridiculous against the metal floor of the police vehicle. Can I at least get my purse? I asked, my voice broken. My medication is in there, and my ID. Don't you worry, ma'am, the young officer replied without looking at me. They'll give you everything you need at the center. From the back window of the car, I watched Lucy standing in the doorway of my house. My house, the one Arthur and I bought after years of saving every penny. The house where we raised the daughter who now watched me leave with a smile she tried to hide. But I knew her. I knew her every expression since she was a baby, and that smile was one of triumph. As the car pulled away down Ashland Avenue, I could see through the rear window that Lucy was already on the phone, probably calling her friends to tell them she had finally freed herself from her crazy mother. The word the policeman had used echoed in my head. Indefinite. The time I could be locked away was indefinite. Serenity Meadows Care Home was located in a suburb of Chicago, in an industrial area where the air smelled of factories and despair. It was a white, 3-story building, with gardens that looked nice from a distance, but revealed their neglect up close. The flowers were withered, the grass was yellow, and elderly people sat on plastic benches, staring into nothingness with an empty expression I never thought I would have. A heavy-set woman in white scrubs met us at the entrance. Her name tag said Brenda, and she had that professional smile used on the mentally ill and small children. "Mrs. Peterson, welcome to your new home," she said in a syrupy voice as the officers handed her some papers. "You're going to be very well cared for here." "This is not my home," I replied with what dignity I had left. "My home is in Pilsen on Ashland Avenue, and I am not crazy." Brenda exchanged a knowing look with the officers and wrote something in a file. Probably delusional episode, or something similar. "Of course, dear, we know. But right now you need to rest and let the doctors examine you." They assigned me a room on the second floor. It was a small room with 2 beds, pale green walls that tried to be calming but only managed to be depressing, and a barred window overlooking an inner courtyard. My roommate was a woman who looked to be in her 80s, sitting on her bed staring blankly at the wall. She didn't respond when I tried to say hello. "Her name is Mildred," Brenda explained. "She's been here for 2 years. She doesn't talk much, but she's very quiet. She won't give you any trouble." 2 years? She had been locked up in here for 2 years? What about her family? Where was her family? "Does she get visitors?" I asked, gesturing toward Mildred. "Her son comes for Christmas," Brenda replied, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "All right, Carol. Now you need to put on one of the center's gowns. It's the rules." She handed me a gown made of a coarse gray fabric, completely devoid of personality. It was the clothing of the dispossessed, the uniform of the forgotten. When I put it on, I felt like I was disappearing. Carol Peterson, the woman who had worked for 40 years, who had raised a daughter, who had loved a man until his death, no longer existed. Now I was just the lady from room 204. The first night was hell. Mildred snored with a sound like the last gasp of someone drowning, and every hour a nurse came by with a flashlight to check that we were okay. The light woke me up each time, reminding me that I no longer even had the right to sleep in peace. But the lack of sleep wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the silence from my phone. Lucy didn't call. Not the first day, not the second, not the third. My neighbors from Pilsen, the ones I'd chatted with for years at the market, didn't call either. It was as if I had died, as if I had vanished from the world without a trace. On the 4th day, I asked Brenda to let me use the phone. "Who do you want to call, Carol?" "My daughter. I just want to know how she is, to tell her I'm okay." "Oh, sweetie, your daughter already spoke with Dr. Mendez. She explained that it's better if you two don't have contact for now. She says she gets very upset when she talks to you." "She gets upset? The one who threw scalding coffee in my face gets upset talking to me? Please," I begged. "Just 5 minutes. I just want to hear her voice." "I can't, Carol. Doctor's orders." Doctor's orders from a doctor who hadn't examined me for more than 10 minutes, who had asked me questions like, "Do you know what day it is?" and "Who is the president?" as if I were an idiot. The days melted into a maddening routine. Waking up at 6 to the clatter of breakfast carts, blue pills they gave me for anxiety, television in the common room where they played cooking shows that reminded me of my home, my kitchen, my old life, lunch of bland food that tasted like a hospital, more pills, a mandatory nap, more television, dinner, more pills, bedtime, and through it all, one question hammered in my head. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen that my daughter hated me to this extent? When exactly had I stopped being her mother and become her enemy? I remembered when she was 3 and would wake up at night crying from nightmares. I would hold her, sing her lullabies, and tell her that Mommy was there to protect her from all the monsters. I never thought the monster would be her. I remembered when she had appendicitis at 12. I stayed awake for 3 days at the hospital, watching over her, praying to every saint that she would be okay. The doctors told me it was just a routine operation. But to me, my entire life was on that gurney. I remembered when she graduated from college. I worked 2 jobs to pay for her tuition, coming home with my feet aching but smiling as she told me about her classes. On her graduation day, I cried with pride. My daughter has a college degree, I told anyone who would listen. At what point had all that love turned rotten? At what point had I stopped being enough for her? On the 10th day at Serenity Meadows, a young aide named Rosa sat with me during lunch. She was different from the others. She had kind eyes and didn't talk to me like I was mentally challenged. "Carol, can I ask you something?" she said in a low voice. "Of course, dear. Do you really believe you're here by mistake?" The question caught me off guard. It was the first time in days that someone had asked for my opinion about my own life. "I know I'm here by mistake," I answered. "My daughter lied about me to get rid of me, and I was foolish enough to never see the betrayal coming." Rosa looked at me for a long moment, as if evaluating whether I was telling the truth. "You know something?" she whispered. "In the 10 years I've worked here, I've seen it all. And you don't talk like the others. You don't have that vacant look. Your answers are coherent. Your memory is intact. You even shower by yourself and don't need help with anything. Then why am I here? Because someone very convincing paid for you to be here." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. Paid? Lucy had paid to have me locked up? "What do you mean she paid?" "Carol, this place isn't free, and Medicare doesn't cover indefinite stays without a very detailed psychiatric evaluation. Someone is paying a fortune every month to keep you here. But Lucy doesn't have any money. She's always asking me." And then it hit me. My Social Security, my pension. Lucy had access to my bank account because I had been stupid enough to authorize it years ago, when she said it would help her with the bills when I couldn't get out. My own money was paying for my imprisonment. "Rosa, could you help me make a phone call? A call that no one knows about." She glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "Who do you want to call?" "My bank. I need to know what's happening with my money." That night, Rosa took me to an empty office and let me use the phone. With trembling hands, I dialed the number for my bank. "Good evening, this is Carol Peterson, owner of account number. I'd like to check the recent transactions on my account." What I heard took my breath away. Every month, for years, Lucy had been withdrawing larger and larger amounts. But in the last 2 weeks, since my admission, the withdrawals had skyrocketed. Huge transfers, purchases at luxury stores, payments to credit cards I didn't recognize. My daughter hadn't just locked me away. She was systematically robbing me while I paid for my own prison. When I hung up, I sat in that dark office for hours, crying silently. Not tears of sadness, but tears of a rage so deep I didn't even know I was capable of feeling it. For the first time since I arrived at Serenity Meadows, I didn't feel like a helpless victim. I felt like what I truly was, a woman who had been betrayed in the cruelest way possible, but who still had the strength to fight. And I was going to fight. Even if it was the last thing I ever did. Rosa became my only ally in that cursed place. 3 days after discovering the theft from my account, she approached me again during recreation time, when the other residents were dozing in front of a game show on TV that no one really understood. "Carol, I need to tell you something," she whispered, sitting beside me on one of those orange plastic armchairs that seemed designed for discomfort. "Your daughter came yesterday." My heart leaped. For a moment, a spark of hope ignited. Maybe Lucy had had a change of heart. Maybe she was coming to get me out, to apologize, to explain it was all a terrible misunderstanding. Did she talk to me? Did she ask for me? Rosa shook her head, a mixture of pity and disgust in her eyes. "She didn't come to see you, Carol. She came to talk to the director, Dr. Mendez. But I was cleaning the hallway and I overheard part of the conversation." "What did she say?" "She asked how much longer you would have to be here. And when the doctor told her it depended on your progress, she got furious." Rosa paused, as if it was hard for her to continue. "She said she couldn't afford to keep paying indefinitely, that she needed a more permanent solution. The word permanent chilled me to the bone. What kind of permanent solution did my daughter have in mind? But that's not the worst part, Carol. The worst part is what I heard her say to one of the nurses as she was leaving. She said, "I hope my mother understands soon that this is where she belongs, that her old life is over." I felt as if a dagger had been plunged into my stomach. My own daughter had come, not to rescue me, but to ensure I would never leave. She had come to bury me alive. "Rosa, I have to get out of here," I said, grabbing her arm. "I need to find a way to prove I'm not crazy, that this is all a lie." "I know, Carol, and I think I know how we can start." That night, Rosa took me back to the abandoned office. This time, she had a notebook and a pen. "We're going to document everything," she said. "Every lie your daughter told the doctors, everything that doesn't add up." Over the next few weeks, Rosa and I became detectives. She managed to get access to my medical file and told me the outrageous things Lucy had written about me. According to her statements, I had tried to set the house on fire, attacked neighbors with a knife, and threatened to commit suicide multiple times. "You know what's the most absurd part of all this?" Rosa told me one afternoon. "She claims you were diagnosed with senile dementia 2 years ago, but there's no medical history to back it up. And she says you've been on psychiatric medication, but there are no prior prescriptions either." "Because I never had any of that," I replied. "My only health issue is high blood pressure, and for that, I see Dr. Evans at the clinic in Pilsen." "Exactly. And that's what we're going to prove." Rosa had managed to contact Dr. Evans without anyone knowing. The doctor was horrified when he learned where I was and confirmed that he had never detected any signs of dementia or psychiatric problems in me. "He says he's willing to testify," Rosa told me excitedly. "And I got something else." She handed me some printed sheets. They were the call records from my landline. "How did you get this?" "I have a cousin who works at the phone company. I told him the situation, and he took pity on you. When I saw the records, I couldn't believe my eyes. For the 3 months prior to my institutionalization, Lucy had been making calls from my phone to numbers I didn't recognize. Numbers that Rosa investigated and turned out to be loan companies, pawn shops, and real estate agencies. "Carol, your daughter was planning this for months. Look at the dates. She called 3 real estate agencies asking for the value of your house. She called loan companies using your name and address. She even called a moving company." "A moving company?" "To get a quote for a full house clear-out." I fell silent, processing the sheer scale of the betrayal. My daughter hadn't just planned to lock me away. She had planned to take everything I owned. My house, my savings, my furniture, my entire life. "But there's more," Rosa continued. "Remember you told me she was always broke, always asking you for money?" "Yes, she was always in financial trouble. Well, it turns out she has a bank account you don't know about. An account where she's been depositing your money for months. And not only that, she has massive debts. She owes money to banks, to credit card companies, to private lenders. Carol, your daughter is ruined, and you are her financial lifeline." It all started to make sense. The increasingly frequent fits of rage, the more and more desperate demands for money. The scalding coffee hadn't been an outburst. It was the perfect moment she had been waiting for to execute her plan. "Rosa, I have to get out of here. I have to stop her before she destroys everything my husband and I built over decades." "And you will get out, Carol. But we need more proof. We need something irrefutable." That's when Rosa had a brilliant idea. "Does your daughter know you have a safe deposit box at the bank?" "No, I never told her. That's where I keep the important papers, the deed to the house, the will, birth certificates." "Perfect. Tomorrow is Friday. On Fridays, Lucy always comes to talk to Dr. Mendez to monitor your progress. While she's here, I'm going to take you to the bank. How will I get out of the center? By trusting me." On Friday morning, Rosa woke me up earlier than usual. "Get dressed in your regular clothes, not the center's gown," she whispered, "and act like you're just going out to the garden for some air." At 9 in the morning, when the center was in the middle of its morning chaos of breakfast, medication, and shift changes, Rosa led me to a side door that opened to the parking lot. "My car is right there. We're going to the bank, getting your papers, and we'll be back before anyone notices you're gone. What if we get caught? Then I get fired. But you don't deserve to be here, Carol. And I'm not going to let that daughter of yours steal everything you've worked for. The drive to downtown Chicago in Rosa's car was the first moment of freedom I'd felt in weeks. Seeing the streets, the people walking, the shops opening, reminded me that there was a world beyond the gray walls of Serenity Meadows. When we got to the bank, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. The teller recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Peterson, how are you? We haven't seen you in weeks." "I've been out of town," I lied. "I need to access my safe deposit box." When we opened the box, what we found left me speechless. The box was practically empty. The deed to the house was gone. My will was gone. The savings bonds I had bought with my life savings were gone. All that was left were a few old photographs and an envelope I didn't remember putting there. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in Lucy's handwriting. "Mom, if you're reading this, it means you finally figured it out. Don't bother looking for your important papers. I have them now. I also have power of attorney over all your property, thanks to some documents you signed without reading 2 years ago. Remember when I told you they were for your health insurance? You were always so naive. Don't bother trying to get anything back. Legally, it's all mine now. Your house, your money, your investments. I even sold your burial plot at Queen of Heaven Cemetery. I hope you enjoy your new life at the nursing home. It's the least you can do after ruining mine for 35 years. By the way, don't come looking for me. By the time you read this, I will have sold the house and moved far away. Your daughter who never loved you, Lucy." The letter fell from my hands. Rosa picked it up and read it silently, her eyes growing wider with horror. "Carol, this is monstrous." I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. For the first time in my life, I felt as though the world had split in two and I had fallen through the crack. My daughter hadn't just stolen my money. She had stolen my identity, my home, my future, and even my final resting place. She had erased me from existence with the efficiency of an exterminator. But when Rosa put a hand on my shoulder and looked at me with those eyes full of genuine compassion, something inside me changed. "Carol, this is not going to stand. I promise you." And for the first time in weeks, I believed that maybe there was hope. Maybe not all was lost. Maybe it was time for Carol Peterson to stop being a victim and start being a fighter. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of Mildred's snoring or the nurse's rounds. I couldn't sleep because, for the first time in months, my mind was wide awake. Lucy's letter had been like a slap of ice-cold water after being submerged in a lake of confusion and pain. I got out of bed at 3 a.m. and went to the barred window. From there, I could see the expressway leading back to Chicago, the car lights moving like fireflies in the distance. Each light represented someone with a life, a home, an identity. I had lost all of that, but for the first time, I didn't feel defeated. I felt furious. It was a clean fury, like the edge of a newly sharpened knife. For weeks I had been crying, pleading, begging for compassion. I had been the perfect victim, submissive, broken, desperate. But Lucy's letter had changed something fundamental in me. I no longer wanted compassion. I wanted justice. When dawn broke, I found Rosa during her morning shift. "I need you to help me with one more thing," I said. "I need to contact a lawyer." "Carol, are you sure? If we make a fuss, they could transfer you to another facility, one farther away, where I can't help you." "Rosa, my daughter has stolen my entire life. If I don't do something now, I'm going to die in this place and she's going to get away with it. I can't let that happen." That afternoon, during the mandatory nap time, Rosa took me to the abandoned office again. She had gotten the number of a lawyer who specialized in elder fraud and abuse cases. "His name is Edward Morales," she explained. "My cousin had trouble with a con artist who took advantage of my great-uncle, and he helped her get some of the money back." I dialed the number with trembling hands. When the lawyer answered, I explained my situation clearly and concisely. To my surprise, he didn't treat me like a crazy person. He listened attentively, asked intelligent questions, and at the end, he said something that gave me a piece of hope back. "Mrs. Peterson, what your daughter has done constitutes several serious felonies: forgery, embezzlement, illegal commitment. We could be talking about several years in prison for her. But how am I going to prove all this from in here? Who's going to believe me? Leave that to me. I'm going to file a formal complaint first thing tomorrow. And I'm going to request an independent psychiatric evaluation for you. If it turns out that you are mentally competent, as I suspect you are, your commitment will be declared illegal. And how long could that take? A few weeks, maybe a month. But Mrs. Peterson, I need you to promise me one thing. Don't do anything that could jeopardize the case. Don't confront your daughter. Don't try to contact her. We have to be smart. I hung up the phone feeling more alive than I had in months. For the first time, I had a plan. I had real hope. I had the possibility of justice. But keeping my composure over the next few weeks was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every day I pretended to be the submissive, confused old woman everyone expected to see. I took the pills they gave me, participated in the stupid occupational therapy activities, and smiled when the nurses talked to me like I was a small child. But at night, Rosa and I planned. She had gathered more evidence, medical records proving I had never been diagnosed with dementia, statements from neighbors confirming I had always been a normal, functional person, even pictures showing the state of my house before Lucy ransacked it. A week after contacting the lawyer, Rosa came to my room with news. "Carol, you have a visitor." "A visitor? Who?" "Your lawyer. And he's brought an independent psychiatrist with him." My heart began to pound like a drum. This was the chance I had been waiting for. The doctor who evaluated me was named Dr. Franklin Reed. He was an older man with a gray beard and kind eyes, completely different from the dismissive Dr. Mendez. The evaluation lasted 3 hours. He asked me about my past, my memories, my reasoning skills. He had me solve math problems, recall lists of words, and explain common sayings. At the end of the session, he looked at me with a serious expression. "Mrs. Peterson, I don't know who diagnosed you with senile dementia, but I can assure you that you are perfectly sane. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is intact, and your emotional responses are completely normal for someone who has endured what you have. So, I can get out of here? Not only can you get out, you should get out immediately. Your commitment to this facility is completely medically unjustified." 2 days later, the lawyer, Edward Morales, arrived with a court order for my immediate release. He also brought a surprise that left me breathless. He had found Lucy. "Your daughter is living in a luxury hotel in Miami Beach," he explained. "Apparently, she's spending your money hand over fist, believing you'd never be able to find her. Have you filed the police report?" "Yes, and the police are preparing an arrest warrant. But there's something else you need to know, Carol." The lawyer paused, as if the next words were difficult. "Your daughter isn't alone in Miami. She's with a man, someone who seems to be helping her squander your fortune. And according to our investigation, this man has a criminal record for defrauding the elderly." The news hit me like a punch to the gut. Lucy hadn't just betrayed me for money. She had betrayed me for a criminal who had likely manipulated her into robbing me. What are we going to do? "We're going to Miami Beach, Carol. We're going to confront her with all the evidence we have, and we're going to get back what's yours." That afternoon, when I walked out the front door of Serenity Meadows, not as a fugitive, but as a free woman, I felt like I was being reborn. Rosa walked me to the door, her eyes filled with tears. "Carol, I'm so proud of you. You've shown that a 67-year-old woman can be stronger than all the lies in the world. Rosa, without you, I would have died in that place. I can never repay you for what you did for me. You already have, Carol. You showed me that it's worth fighting for justice, even when all seems lost." The flight to Miami was the longest of my life. During the 3-hour trip, I replayed everything I was going to say to Lucy when I saw her. For years, I had fantasized about a moment when we could talk like mother and daughter, clear up our misunderstandings, and reconcile. But now I knew that fantasy was dead. The woman waiting for me in Miami was no longer my daughter. She was a stranger who had used my love as a weapon to destroy me. When we arrived at the hotel, a 5-star resort on the ocean, I couldn't help but think of the irony. My money, the money I had saved working as a secretary for 40 years, earning a modest salary and denying myself small luxuries, was now paying for the most expensive suite in one of the most exclusive hotels in the country. "Are you ready, Carol?" the lawyer asked. "I'm ready," I replied. And for the first time in months, my voice sounded firm and confident. "Remember, don't let your emotions take over. We're here to recover what's yours and to make her answer for her crimes. Nothing more." We took the elevator to the penthouse suite. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation. For so many weeks, I had been the helpless victim. Now, it was my turn to hold the power. When the lawyer knocked on the suite door, we heard laughter from inside. Carefree, joyful laughter, as if life were an endless party, as if destroying your own mother was a reason to celebrate. The door opened, and there she was. My daughter, Lucy, tanned, wearing expensive clothes I recognized immediately as the type she had always coveted but never been able to afford. Her expression shifted from joy to confusion, and then to absolute horror when she recognized me. "Mom?" she whispered as if she were seeing a ghost. "Hello, Lucy," I said with a calmness that surprised even me. "I believe you and I have something to talk about." The silence that followed my words was deafening. Lucy stood frozen in the doorway, her mouth half open, her eyes so wide they looked like they might pop out of her head. Behind her, I could see a man in his 40s, tan, with gold chains and expensive athletic wear. He had the predator's smile I recognized instantly, the kind of man who specialized in manipulating vulnerable women. How did you get out?" Lucy stammered, backing into the suite. You were supposed to be crazy? Locked away forever? Dead?" I interrupted, walking into the room without an invitation. "Sorry to disappoint you, sweetie, but it turns out I'm not as crazy as you made everyone believe." The suite was obscenely luxurious. Marble floors, a panoramic ocean view, French champagne in an ice bucket, trays of caviar and shrimp that probably cost more than my entire monthly Social Security check. On the coffee table were receipts from designer stores, bills from five-star restaurants, and what hurt the most, scattered photographs of me, treated like trash. "I see you've been enjoying my life savings," I said, picking up one of the receipts. $8,000 at Gucci. Very nice. Especially since that money was meant for my medication and my funeral. The man behind Lucy stepped forward with the false confidence of a professional con artist. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Lucy told me you had passed away and she had inherited—" "She told you I'd passed away?" I cut him off with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "How curious, because here I am, very much alive and very aware that you two have been spending my money while I was paying for my own kidnapping in a nursing home." Edward, my lawyer, followed me in with a briefcase full of documents. "Ms. Lucy Peterson, I'm Edward Morales, your mother's attorney. I have here an arrest warrant in your name for the crimes of forgery, embezzlement, fraud, and the illegal commitment of a family member." Lucy collapsed onto one of the white leather sofas as if her legs could no longer support her. "Mom, please. I can explain everything. I didn't want this to happen. But I was desperate. I had debts." "Desperate," I repeated, feeling the rage I'd held back for weeks finally find its voice. "You were desperate? Do you have any idea what desperation is, Lucy? It's waking up in a strange place with no idea how you got there. It's having your own daughter throw boiling coffee in your face. It's finding out that the person you trusted most in the world has stolen your right to even die with dignity." I moved closer to her, and for the first time in years, I saw real fear in her eyes. She was no longer the spoiled child manipulating me with fake tears. She was an adult woman facing the consequences of her actions. "Do you know what hurts the most, Lucy? It's not the money. It's not the house. It's not even the nursing home. What hurts the most is that you sold my burial plot. The place where I was going to rest next to your father. You sold my death." Lucy started to cry, but this time her tears seemed real. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. At first, I was just going to take out a loan against the house, but Manny said—" "Manny told you?" I interrupted, looking at the man who now seemed to be searching for an exit. So this was the brains of the operation? The man, Manny, held up his hands as if surrendering. "Ma'am, I just gave Lucy some financial advice. I didn't know her mother was alive." "Liar!" Lucy suddenly screamed, jumping up from the sofa. You told me it was the only way. You told me old people like my mom were a burden on society and that I had a right to live my own life. Edward approached Manny with a chilling smile. Mr. Manuel Vargas, is it? I have a warrant for your arrest as well. For conspiracy, aggravated fraud, and racketeering. It seems Mrs. Peterson's daughter isn't your first victim. We have records of at least 4 prior cases where you convinced indebted individuals to defraud their elderly relatives. Manny turned pale and started for the door, but Edward blocked his path. I don't think you're going anywhere. The police are waiting downstairs. That's when Lucy did something I never expected. She threw herself at my feet, literally. She got on her knees on the marble floor and hugged my legs, just like she did when she was a little girl and had broken something valuable. Mom, forgive me. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but please, don't let them send me to prison. I'm your daughter. I'm all you have in the world. Those words were like a slap. For a moment, I felt the maternal urge to protect her, to forgive her, to fix this mess. This was my little girl, the baby I had held in my arms, the teenager I had defended when teachers complained about her behavior. But then I remembered the letter from the safe deposit box. I remembered the words, your daughter who never loved you. I remembered the scalding coffee. I remembered the nights crying in the nursing home. I remembered the humiliation, the dispossession, the systematic betrayal. I bent down and took her face in my hands, looking her directly in the eye. Lucy, listen to me carefully. For 35 years, I was your mother. I gave you my life, my youth, my money, my unconditional love. But some things are unforgivable. And destroying the person who loves you most in the world is one of them. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. You know, Lucy, you're right about one thing. I was all you had left in the world. But now, you are nothing to me. I turned to look at her one last time. She was still on the floor, crying like a child, but it no longer stirred any compassion in me, only a profound sadness for the woman she had become. Edward, proceed with the arrest. I want to recover every last cent she stole from me, and I want her to face the consequences of her actions. Are you sure, Carol? Edward asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. Completely sure. My daughter Lucy died the day she threw that coffee in my face. This woman is a stranger who robbed me using my love as a weapon. As the police officers came in to arrest Lucy and Manny, she screamed at me. Mom, you're going to be alone forever. No one else will ever love you. You're going to die a lonely, bitter old woman. Her words bounced off me, causing no pain. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. I'd rather be alone and free than accompanied and enslaved, I replied. I'd rather be a woman alone with dignity than a betrayed mother without it. When they led her away in handcuffs, I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief, as if I had been carrying a tremendous weight for years and had finally been set free. Edward placed a hand on my shoulder. Carol, how are you feeling? I took a deep breath, inhaling the salty air from the open window. I feel free, Edward. For the first time in decades, I feel completely free. That night, on the flight back to Chicago, I couldn't help but smile. I was 67 years old. I had lost my daughter. I had been betrayed in the cruelest way possible, but I had survived. I had fought. I had won. And for the first time in my life, I was excited to find out who Carol Peterson was when she didn't have to be anyone's mother, when she didn't have to sacrifice for anyone, when she could finally live for herself. Revenge hadn't brought my daughter back, but it had brought me back to myself. And that, I decided, was more valuable than any love that had to be bought with submission and sacrifice. 3 months after Lucy's arrest, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror in my Pilsen apartment. The same mirror where months before I had seen a broken woman with a face burned by her own daughter's coffee. But the woman looking back at me now was completely different. I had gained weight back. My eyes were clear. And for the first time in a very long time, I was smiling. My hair, which had become dull and brittle during those days of anguish, now shone with a modern cut I got at a trendy salon in the Wicker Park neighborhood. I had bought new clothes, not because I needed them, but because I wanted to. For the first time in decades, I had spent money on myself without feeling guilty. The house had changed, too. I had completely redecorated the living room, getting rid of all the furniture that reminded me of Lucy. I painted the walls a Mediterranean blue that made me think of freedom and endless horizons. On the dining room table, where I used to set breakfast for two, hoping she would join me, there were now books, travel magazines, and flyers for senior activities. Edward had managed to recover almost all of my money. The legal process had been complicated, but in the end, we had proven every instance of fraud. The house was back in my name, my bank accounts were restored, and I had even managed to get back my burial plot at Queen of Heaven Cemetery, though now I wasn't so sure I wanted to share it with Arthur. The man I remembered would never have allowed his daughter to treat me the way Lucy had. But the most important change wasn't material, it was internal. For the first time in my life, I didn't wake up thinking about what someone else needed from me. I didn't wonder if Lucy was hungry, if she needed money, if she was okay. I didn't apologize for existing, for taking up space, for having my own needs. One January morning, as I was quietly sipping my coffee at the kitchen table, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Carol Peterson?" a young voice asked. "Yes, this is she. My name is Anna Martin. I'm a social worker with the City of Chicago. We learned about your case through your lawyer, and we wanted to ask if you'd be interested in participating in a support program for seniors who have suffered from family abuse." The offer took me by surprise. For months, I had been so focused on getting back what was mine that I hadn't thought about what came next. What would it involve exactly? Well, it has two parts. One would be receiving counseling if you need it, to process everything that's happened. The other, if you're willing, would be sharing your story to help other people who are going through similar situations. My story? Mrs. Peterson, you can't imagine how many seniors live in abusive situations with their own children. Many feel alone, ashamed, convinced that they somehow deserve it. Your case shows that it's possible to fight back, that it's possible to win. Your testimony could save lives. That same afternoon, I went to the appointment at the city offices. Anna was a woman in her 30s, with intelligent eyes and a genuine warmth that reminded me of Rosa. She explained that she ran a support group where elderly victims of family abuse met weekly to share experiences and find ways to rebuild their lives. "The first meeting can be intense," she warned me. "You'll meet people who are still in the middle of it, who still feel guilty, who still believe they somehow caused their own situation. I understand. I went through that too." "Exactly. That's why your presence could be so valuable. You represent hope, the proof that you can get to the other side." The first meeting was in a small room at a community center in Lincoln Park. When I arrived, there were 6 people sitting in a circle, 4 women and 2 men, all over 60. On their faces, I saw the same pain I had carried for months: the confusion, the shame, the feeling of having failed as parents. A woman named Gloria, about 70, was telling the group how her son had emptied her bank account to pay his gambling debts. "I just don't understand what I did wrong," she said through tears. "I always gave him everything he asked for. I worked double shifts when he was little to buy him whatever he wanted. How is it possible that he hates me so much now?" Her words sounded familiar. I had asked myself the same questions for years. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and began to tell my story. I told them about the boiling coffee, the nursing home, the theft, the betrayal, but I also told them about Rosa, about Edward, about the decision to fight, and about the moment I understood that my survival was more important than my daughter's love. "And you don't feel guilty?" asked a man named Frank, whose daughter had taken his house. "Don't you ever think that maybe you were partly to blame, Frank?" I asked myself that question for months. I wondered if I had been too permissive, too generous, too weak. But one day I understood something very important. There is nothing a mother can do that justifies her child betraying and abusing her. Nothing. "But she's my daughter," Gloria insisted. "I can't just forget about her. And I'm not telling you to, Gloria. I'm telling you to remember yourself. Remember that you matter too, that your life, your dignity, your well-being also have value." The meetings became the most important part of my week. Watching these people reclaim their strength, their self-esteem, their ability to set boundaries, filled me with a sense of purpose I had never felt before. Gloria was the first to take action. After 2 months of meetings, she decided to confront her son and demand her money back. When he refused, she reported him to the police. She didn't get it all back, but she got her dignity back. It took Frank longer, but he eventually got his daughter to return the house in exchange for not pressing criminal charges. But not every case had a happy ending. Some members of the group never managed to completely break free from the cycle of abuse. The fear of loneliness, the guilt, the hope that their children would change, it all kept them trapped. One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, Anna asked me to stay for a moment. "Carol, there's something I'd like to propose. The city is organizing an awareness campaign about elder abuse. We want to make a documentary, informational pamphlets, hold talks at community health centers. Would you be interested in being the public face of the campaign?" "Me? Are you sure?" "Carol, in these past few months, you've become a symbol of resilience. Your story proves that it doesn't matter how old you are. You can always fight back. You can always choose your own dignity over a love that hurts you." I accepted without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, I took part in interviews, film shoots, and photo sessions. It was strange to be the center of attention after decades of being invisible, but I liked it. I liked feeling that my pain had served a purpose, that my experience could help others. The documentary premiered in March, coinciding with International Women's Day. It was called It's Never Too Late to Be Free, and it told not only my story, but those of 5 other survivors of family abuse. The night of the premiere, in a small theater in downtown Chicago, I saw my story projected on a giant screen. Seeing everything that had happened objectively, narrated with images and testimonies, made me fully understand the journey I had traveled, from a silent victim to an empowered woman, from an enslaved mother to a free person. After the screening, a young woman approached me. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mrs. Peterson, thank you. My grandmother is going through something similar with my uncle. After seeing your story, I understand that we can help her, that she doesn't have to just accept it." That night, walking back to my apartment through the streets of Chicago, I stopped in Lincoln Park. It was a clear night. You could see the stars despite the city lights. I sat on a bench, and for the first time in months, I thought about Lucy, not with pain, not with anger, with a deep sadness for the woman she had become, for the choices she had made, for the relationship we could never have, but also with gratitude. Her betrayal had forced me to discover a strength I never knew I had. It had taught me that true love never demands self-destruction. It had shown me that at 67, I could still reinvent myself. I could still discover who I was when I didn't have to be anyone's perfect mother. I took out my phone and checked the time, 11 o'clock at night. In my old life, I would have already been in bed, worrying if Lucy had gotten home safely, if she would need anything the next day. But that night, I decided to walk a little longer. I decided to get ice cream at a shop that stayed open late. I decided to live in my time, my space, my freedom. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to answer to anyone. I didn't have to justify my decisions. I didn't have to apologize for existing. I was free. And that freedom tasted sweeter than any love I had ever known. But that peace was short-lived. A week later, I received a court notice. Lucy had filed a petition for a mandatory psychiatric evaluation, alleging that I was exhibiting delusional episodes, paranoid behavior, and severe confusion. She claimed she feared for my safety, and for that of my grandchildren. The letter was a masterpiece of cynicism. It called me mom, with feigned sweetness while asserting that I was losing touch with reality and needed immediate guardianship to be protected from my own erratic decisions. She even attached photos of my house with objects in disarray, a pile of unwashed dishes, and old medical reports with words crossed out and phrases taken out of context. My hands were trembling. For years I had let myself be humiliated in silence, but I never imagined my own daughter would try to take away my right to be free, with lies. I called Mr. Garcia, my new lawyer. When he read the notice, he looked at me gravely. "This isn't just a legal maneuver. It's a declaration of war. Lucy is willing to destroy her own image to get control of your assets. But she's not alone. We have proof, and we're going to fight back. Days later, I appeared before the judge. I wore my best embroidered blouse and my hair was tied back, just as my mother had taught me. I had slept barely 3 hours, not from fear, but from the anxiety of facing the woman I once carried in my womb, who now looked at me as an enemy. Lucy didn't blink. Dressed in a beige suit with red lipstick, she sat next to her lawyer and avoided my gaze. When the judge asked why she believed I should be declared incompetent, her voice sounded firm, but hollow. My mother no longer distinguishes between reality and imagination. She claims things that never happened, like that we forced her to sell her house, or that we forbid her from seeing her grandchildren. She's being manipulated by strangers, and we believe her mental health is at risk. The judge nodded, took notes, and then turned to me. Do you have anything to say, Mrs. Peterson? I stood up. It was hard to keep my voice steady, but I managed. Yes, Your Honor. I am 71 years old. I don't have Alzheimer's or dementia. I cook, I clean, I read, I write, I tend to my plants. I walk to the market by myself, and I recently started a blog that already has over 3,000 readers. If that's being crazy, then lock me up. But at least let me choose the cell with flowers. There was a brief silence, then a few murmurs. The judge nodded with a slight smile and asked me to sit down. That hearing was a turning point. The guardianship petition was immediately rejected, and Lucy received a formal warning for abusing the judicial system. But the war wasn't over. The following weeks were a whirlwind of news. I got calls from community radio shows, women's associations, and even a local TV station that wanted to interview me about the blog's impact. I wasn't looking for fame. I just wanted other women like me to know there was a way out. But then the unthinkable happened. One morning on my way to the market, 2 men on a motorcycle sped by and snatched my purse. They shoved me against a wall, hitting my back. I fell to the ground, stunned. They didn't get much money, but they took my phone and my keys. I thought it was a random mugging, until I received an anonymous handwritten note in my mailbox with no envelope. Keep quiet or Sophia is next. I was chilled to the bone. I called the police, the lawyer, Adult Protective Services. They all took reports, but no one could prove a direct link to Lucy or her husband. Nevertheless, something inside me knew. They didn't just want my silence. They wanted to break me. For days, I couldn't sleep. I lived in fear. I changed the locks. I installed cameras. And for the first time in a long while, I doubted whether it was worth it to keep fighting. It was my grandson, Diego, who gave me strength. One afternoon, he came to visit with a notebook in his hand. Grandma, I want you to read this. It was a notebook full of drawings. On each page, a portrait of our family. On the first, there were the 4 of us. Him, Sophia, Lucy, and me. On the second, just him and me, holding hands, walking through a park. On the third, a small house with flowers in the window and a sign that said, "Here, they listen to me." I cried in a way I hadn't since my husband died. You made this? Yes, and there's more. I wrote a story about a brave grandmother who fights invisible monsters to protect her magic house. Do you want to read it? Of course, my love. Bring it here. That night, while he slept on the sofa, I read the whole thing. It wasn't just any story. It was his way of telling me that he saw me, that he believed me, that he loved me, and I understood finally that I couldn't give up. 2 days later, I published a new post on the blog. Stronger, braver, clearer. I described the mugging, the threat, and the paralyzing fear I lived with every day. Not for pity, but to show the truth, that when an older woman decides to set boundaries, it makes the world uncomfortable. The post went viral, thousands of comments. Women from all over sharing their own stories, of daughters who disowned them, of being forbidden from seeing grandchildren, of homes stolen through documents signed under false pretenses. And something changed. A week later, I received an email from the State Department on Aging. They wanted to meet with me to propose that I become a spokesperson for a new awareness campaign. I accepted with fear, but also with dignity. Lucy didn't take long to react. She called me for the first time in months. "What are you doing, Mom? Are you trying to ruin our lives?" "No, Lucy. I'm just saving mine. You're going to make a fool of yourself on TV. I'd rather look foolish than remain invisible." She hung up. And I knew that for the first time I had disarmed her. Not with hatred, but with truth. Days later, I was invited to give a talk at a public school about financial abuse of the elderly. At the end of the event, a young woman approached me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for telling your story. My mother is going through the same thing. Today, I'm going to find the courage to help her." And that was my moment of victory. I didn't win a fortune. I didn't get my house back. I didn't punish those who hurt me with jail time. But I got back something much more valuable: my voice. And as long as I have my voice, there will be stories to tell. And as long as there are stories, there will be women who awaken. And as long as there are women who are awake, this world will still have hope. Life lesson: there's no age limit on defending yourself. There's no shame in saying enough. And if they call you crazy for setting boundaries, then let the world get used to hearing brave women speak up. Have you ever been made to feel that growing older is the same as disappearing? Tell me in the comments. Your story can also help heal another woman. Write about your experience below or leave a heart if you felt a connection. It would help me to continue sharing these silenced voices. And if this story touched your soul, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps more women like you know they are not alone. Never again.